Back on Adapt and Respond with me, RJ Young. If you are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Who do you believe has the toughest schedule in the Big Ten, and who do you believe has the easiest schedule in the Big Ten? Because this is an interesting topic, especially as we look at how teams might be ranked in the preseason and what they were able to accomplish last year, and what we can expect from teams that went through their roster management and roster transformations this offseason, to say nothing of the defending national champions are also not the defending league champions. Very interesting if you take a look at it. So answer the question, comments below. Let me know what you think. We also got an audio podcast for those of you that are new to the channel, and where you could listen to the entire episode. If that's what you're doing, thank you so much for doing that. So I'm looking at this, and I think Ohio State playing one of the most difficult schedules in the Big Ten is something we can say because of Texas, right? You add Texas to your slate. That's a college football playoff semifinalist. That's going to help you. Maybe a preseason number one team might be Ohio State. I haven't given a pick in that game yet, but I will. And I'm not necessarily sure it's going to reflect my ultimate 136, which will come out next month. But you also have Penn State on the road. You're going to Michigan. You're going to Illinois. You're going to Washington. And that starts to really add up quickly. Washington being the team that could be great, could be bad. We don't know. Michigan is going to be tough, especially knowing that Ohio State hasn't beaten Michigan since 2019. Penn State is supposed to be tough, but Penn State's record against top 5 opponents says that's an Ohio State win. Ohio State has treated Penn State like a rental property. Penn State is 0-7 the last 4 years against both Ohio State and Michigan. So we'll see about that. So does it have the toughest schedule in the Big Ten? No, but I would give top 5 because Texas is doing a lot of work there. Penn State will be a top 5 team to many. We'll see where Illinois lands. Illinois ought to be a top 25 team. I think they are. I think they earned that after what they did last year and what they've got coming back this year. And then we'll see, again, what Washington becomes. Michigan feels like it's skating, which, par for the course, because their non-conference for the most part has been garbage, to use that French term, to which I can already hear Wolverine fans. They're like, yo, man, don't we play your Oklahoma Sooners? Ain't they supposed to be good? Not 2 out of the last 3 years, my guys. Oklahoma has averaged just better than 7 wins over the Brent Venables era. If Oklahoma won 7 games in a season in the Bob Stoops era, and that was the cap, in the 2000s, we got a problem. We got a problem, and that's what you got at Oklahoma. You got a problem, right? I don't think that anybody would have been saying Bob would have got fired, but we'd have had a problem because 8-5 felt like 5-7 at Oklahoma. That's just not the case anymore. Some of that is the SEC. Some of that is new management. Some of that is name, image, and likeness, and the perils of modern college football. But it's still Oklahoma, and you expect them to be good, which is where I can say, okay, Michigan, if it is the Oklahoma that we have seen, say, in 2023, you got a shot there. But after that, you're talking about Nebraska and USC. There's a 4-game stretch in there that includes Ohio State, Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern. But of those 4 teams that I just named, Ohio State's the only one that gives you the scaries. If you get the scaries, and Michigan doesn't, they're like, hey, tell us the last time they beat us again. Was it 6 years ago? Was it 7? I forget. It's 6 years ago. But November 29th, that's probably going to be, once again, about who's going to play in the Big Ten championship and who makes the college football playoff. It could be both of them. At least one of them, I think, is going to be good enough to do this, Ohio State being the one. But Michigan was able to put together an 8-win season, beat the national champs, and Alabama with quarterback play where they averaged 5.4 yards per attempt. That's a service academy number, guys. They played the game without a quarterback, and they still were pretty friggin' good. So knowing that the schedule's got Oklahoma on it, USC and Nebraska, depending on how you feel about that, but might be the same way you feel about Washington in conversation with Ohio State. And then you got a Purdue team that you ought to beat like you stole something. Northwestern team you ought to beat like you stole something. A Michigan State team that you ought to beat like you stole something, and Ohio State. Does it feel like Michigan is skating on the Big Ten schedule again? Yeah. Has it mattered when it's time to play ball, like play against Ohio State, play against Iowa in a Big Ten championship game, play in the college football playoff, win a national championship? No, it hasn't. And that's got nothing to do with NCAA infractions or federal indictments of past assistance or whatever Jim Harbaugh did or didn't do. That's just who they have been since 2021. And the last team that I want to talk about in this strength of schedule bit is Penn State, who some people believe have one of the easiest schedules in the conference. I don't think it's the easiest schedule in the conference. I do, however, believe it's toward the middle, right? So we're talking about, you got to play Oregon. That'll be tough. Oregon also got the win against you in the Big Ten championship game. You got to play Ohio State. That will be tough. And, depending on how you feel about Oregon, that's 2 top 5 opponents. And if James Franklin's record continues to hold, you're 1 for 16 against top 5 opponents in the AP. You could be 1 for 17 if you don't change up quick, fast, and in a hurry playing those 2 teams. There's time between Oregon and Ohio State for us to have a better read on who Penn State is. But because Penn State doesn't play anybody that we care about, it's always difficult to put a finger on how good they are, because they just as easily could have been what Michigan has been the last 4 years. They just can't beat Ohio State or Michigan for that matter. But you look at the rest of the schedule, they're on the road to Ohio State. You get UCLA, Iowa, Michigan State, and Rutgers. You got trips to, Iowa, UCLA. Then your non-conferences, essentially, it makes Oklahoma's 6A1 look like the NFC North, Oklahoma 6A1, by the way, is high school football for those of y'all that are uninitiated. Nevada, FIU, and Villanova. Say that again. Nevada, Florida International, and Villanova. Why do we let people do this? And, Indiana got absolutely destroyed for dropping Virginia from its future schedule. And Kurt Cincinnati said, hey, we just thought we might schedule like an SEC team for once. They don't want to play meaningful non-conference games because they think it'll hurt them, because it might, when the College Football Playoff Selection Committee decides to start ranking teams based on who they played. No, they rank them based on their record. And I'm telling you, Nevada, Florida International, and Villanova will prove nothing except that Penn State will run up the score. And because they'll run up the score, they'll move up the rankings, because voters don't watch as much college football as I watch. And they're also not going to look at FIU and go, that team is not even in the same hemisphere as a Penn State should be. There's no apples to apples comparison in their non-conference. And that's what sucks. Now, aside from that, and why I would say it's more toward the middle and not at the bottom, they got 3 college football playoff teams on their schedule. And that means something, right? They got to play Oregon, they got to play Ohio State, and they got to play Indiana. If Indiana gets the win against Penn State, then we get to have conversations about what James Franklin is, doing for Christmas. Is it preparing for a New Year's Six bowl berth, or is it preparing a job resume? I think that could make or break. I really do, especially as you're trying to get back to the playoff. And the reason that, your alumni and new athletic director went all in on getting you Jim Knowles and giving you the kind of money you needed to make sure that Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, Dennis Sutton, Drew Aller, and them all come back is to win the whole damn thing. It certainly doesn't mean losing to Indiana. However, you might also remember Indiana's only losses last year were to the 2 teams that played in the national championship, Ohio State and Notre Dame. You could do worse, which is another reason why sleeping on Indiana is no longer a thing we get to do. So is it the toughest? No. Is it the softest? No. Should it be enough for them to get to the playoff? Abso-friggin-lutely.